Hello, everyone. So it is Friday morning, and I got back last night from the hospital. I just wanted to make a really quick video letting everyone know thank you so much for the comments that were posted, wishing me well and keeping me in your prayers. I think it honestly made such a difference. I got home late last night. My surgery was at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, and I got home last night at about 5:30. My mom is staying with me now, so we wound up just, watching a little bit of TV. I had a half of a protein shake for dinner, and then I was exhausted, so I went to bed. And I'm just kind of waking up now. I woke up at 6:30 after a rough night of sleep, but then laid back down. So one of the first things I wanted to do is just let everyone know that I'm fine, and thank you so much. Allison, I was definitely thinking about feel the fear, but do it anyway, as I walked into the surgeon's room, the operating room, and that made a huge difference. So I'm going to try to just really quickly say how it went, but I might honestly have to press stop if I get really tired. In terms of how I feel pretty okay. I'm just really, really tired, and really sore. Like my stomach, you know, feels like I did a million crunches, which is better than Tuesday when it felt like a Mack truck ran over my stomach. So Tuesday morning we had to go. I went with my mom and my girlfriend. We had to be at the hospital by 9 a.m., which was fine. Got there, and the whole first part honestly was pretty easy because it was just one step at a time, and so I wasn't letting my nerves accumulate. So getting weighed, getting my height taken, changing into a hospital gown, and I couldn't see myself in the hospital gown, so I'm sure it was scarier for my mom and for Becky than it was for me. For me, it was like, okay, this is like weird to be sitting in this waiting room with just two pieces of cloth around me, but that's fine. So I couldn't see myself and see how scary it looked that I was, in a hospital gown. They put in my IV, and I was like, okay, one more thing. The surgeon was delayed because the surgery before him went over. And so that was kind of a bummer. I was supposed to go in at 11, and I wound up not going in until, almost 1. And I just started getting really tired because I hadn't, 2 days of clear liquids, and then I hadn't eaten or drinking anything all day. And I think I was just like really pumped for it, and then started to really feel tired. So, but at 1 o'clock he came in, and, I kissed everyone goodbye, and then went with the anesthesiologist, chatting with him about my history, and got onto the table, and that was definitely the big moment. Like walking into the operating room was the moment of, okay, if I can make it through the door, I can do this. But I maybe could not make it through the door. Do you know what I mean? Like, just that was the moment. Everything before then was, sure, set up my IV, sure, take my weight, like, obviously this is a huge day, but this is not the scary part. And walking into the operating room was the scary part. So, I made a joke about how I'd been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy to prepare for the surgery, which actually is sort of true. I mean, it's one of my favorite shows, but it's also terrifying because the survival rate on that show is something like 50-50. And, some of the surgeons laughed, and my surgeon said, oh, if work was like that video, I'd be coming in a lot more often, having sex with my coworkers every day. So it just seemed like that was a good, I was like, okay, laughter, okay. And, they put on this really soft molded oxygen mask, and I definitely was just nervous, but it felt like it was suffocating me. Like I felt like every breath it would like flatten against my face. And later my surgeon said on Wednesday it was because I was just taking such big gulps of the oxygen and of the gas. So I got out Tuesday night, went into recovery room, not yet my own room. And I don't remember a ton then. Like, I remember waking up, and I remember seeing Becky and my mom, and they had given me a morphine pump just to push whenever I felt like I was in pain. And the idea is that I could push it every 10 minutes, and it would give me morphine. So they had told me, if you push it more than that, it's fine because you can't give yourself an overdose on it. So later that night when they moved me into my own room, the nurse had said, oh, are you in a lot of pain? Even if you were pushing it every 10 minutes, you would have pushed it 20 times, and you pushed it 124 times. And I do remember when I came out just being like, so definitely it was painful when I came out. And I mean, I've never had major surgery. I've never given birth to kids. I've never any of that. I do remember that it was manageable. Like, it was painful, but I was like, okay, if this is as bad as it gets, I can do this. So I went to my room at, Monday night. I don't remember a ton of that. I mean, I feel like I had my own heinous, it was a semi-private room. I had a roommate. I feel like I had my own heinous roommate stories, but all the videos that I watched about what it was really like in the hospital, it seemed like everyone had a heinous roommate story. So I'm sure it's just that being in the hospital, everyone is crabby and sensitive, and her and I both were. But she was immobile in bed, so I didn't even see her actually. And I kind of had the bed towards the outside, which was nice. I was closer to the bathroom, I had a private bathroom, and then closer to the hallway. So the first night I just stayed in bed, and the team came around quite a few times, and I found out later it was because my heart rate stayed elevated. It was about 122 for most of the night, and they were worried that there was internal bleeding, so they took some blood. And the guy had a hard time finding a vein, which they always do. And he's like, I'm so sorry about this. I read this, and I told him, I don't care if you have to stick me 400 times. I'd rather you get blood and tell me I don't have internal bleeding than, apologize for sticking me. And he's like, oh, okay, at least you understand why we're doing this. So he finally did get blood, and later that night he told me everything was fine. That was a scary moment. And just knowing, too, that my heart rate was elevated was scary, because it didn't feel elevated. Like, I didn't feel thumping, it didn't feel panting, it was just, I felt normal. And yet, it's normally the next day my heart rate was 85, which is normal for me, and all that night it was 120s, then slowly came down to 115, that kind of thing. The nurse I had that night was fantastic, and she was like, okay, we're going to get you to walk at 2:30. And I thought she was crazy. There was no way I could walk. But she came in, and, it's weird things. Like, I was really nervous about the catheter. It's like, oh, this is going to be awful, whatever. But then it was such a blessing to not have to think about getting up to go to the bathroom at all the first night. So some of the stuff that I was like, I don't know, was such a blessing. So she came and got me up at 2:30 that night, just 2:30 in the morning. And we just did probably like 200 feet of walking. And by the end, I was really nauseous. And she said that was just, the anesthesia wearing off. So I laid back down. And then at 6:30, and I kind of slept, people were coming in every hour to take my vitals. And then at 6:30, she came back and said, we were going to walk again. And that time I made the whole, 250 feet lap without feeling nauseous. So, and it was weird, those little things that made me feel like I was getting stronger. Like, obviously I was so immobile and so in pain and so sore and so weak. But I really liked, doing the little breath thing where you're blowing and the balls go up. I can show you mine later. Like, doing that kind of stuff actually made me feel better, because in the beginning I could do 1, then I could do 2, and now I can do 3. And just being able to see how much I can walk, it just makes me feel like, okay, well, if today I feel 200% better than yesterday, and yesterday I felt 200% better than Tuesday, things will be fine. So then she gave me a sponge bath, and it's amazing because I feel like I'm a pretty, pretty private person, but suddenly I was like, okay, like, whatever. And part of it is just because there was literally no way I could imagine bathing myself. Like, all I wanted to do was lay back down. I couldn't imagine bending. So, she did that for me. She was just so, so, so sweet. And then the next day was I was pretty tired. Okay, it's about 9 minutes, so I'm just going to pause and I'll make one more video.